done for the engineering other faculties. I didn't hear a lot for the liberal arts, though. If I'm a liberal arts student, should I be a little bit worried about what your platform is?
No, I think I was clear in saying that the universities and colleges have a mandate that's broadly based. It's different from institution to institution. Liberal arts education is important. I simply made the point that in terms of funding, I think that institutions that we're speaking of are receiving public dollars, and some portion of that needs to be dollars which incentivize people to ensure that the programs they're offering match with the labor market. And because I think that's an important part of their responsibility, and it's an important part of where we need to go as a province. And so, it comes back to the funding base, the formula we're going to use, the predictability of it, and the incentivizations that are built into it.
And these institutions, though, to sort of work together, is that going to be the major challenge? They've been notoriously sort of protective of their turf in the past.
Well, I mean, there's been turf jealousies amongst universities as long as there have been universities. I think the important point, which I tried to make today, is that we have some really exceptional institutions in this province, and we deserve to celebrate them. We need to make sure, as in terms of our governance of them, we need to make sure that they are in a condition to succeed. And I think the essential obligation of a Conservative government is to make sure that you put the conditions in place so that these institutions can flourish, can succeed, can have good governance, can have stable funding, and can do the things that they're very good at. And so I, for one, applaud the institutions we have in this province and think that we need to make them stronger.
Mr. McKenzie, so the predictable funding model for universities is an old idea, and that we need to have what's the word used? A better formula for incentivizing.
Well, I think I said exactly the same thing, which is that these institutions receive public dollars, and so they have an obligation to ensure that the programming that they're providing matches what's required in the labor market. And I use the illustration of power engineering, where I've been to a university graduation in Alberta, seen the number of young people that want to take power engineering. I mean, they're sleeping in the hallways overnight, at places like SAIT and NAIT to get into those programs. And so, we need to ramp up those kind of programs, and there are other areas where we have a surplus of graduates. And so we need funding rules that take that into account.
Yes. To change the channel a little bit here. As Premier, what do you think about, or would you consider looking at introducing higher royalties for oil companies?
Well, I'm running for the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party, firstly, and that I have to earn that responsibility. And so, I think the royalty regime that we have is a sound regime. I think if you look at the average royalties that we receive as a government, they are quite fair, and I don't anticipate changing that at this point. I think the challenges that we face at this point are the challenges that relate to taking Alberta from being a provincial producer of energy, marketing into a single customer, namely the United States, into becoming a global powerhouse. And the responsibility of the government isn't to change the royalty regime in that context. The responsibility of the government is to make sure that we set the conditions in terms of market access, in terms of trading relationships into the Asia-Pacific basin, and in terms of infrastructure, specifically pipelines and ports. And I've made this point before, but in that context, the conclusion I've come to is that the Premier of Alberta is the critical player in all this.
Well, we can expect a post-secondary.
Would you think we've neglected our seniors and the two kind of spectrum, the two ends here in this province?
Sorry, the first part of your question was, have we?
Have we, yeah, in terms of senior care, and then daycare, I guess the other end I asked this of Mr. McKenzie as well.
Well, in terms of senior care, these are, the challenges that we face are the challenges of a province that has a population that's now crested 4 million, headed to 5 million people. These are the problems of population growth, and making sure that we have the infrastructure and the rules in place to allow the market to flourish and to provide the public services. My mom just passed away. She passed away this October. She was in a care facility in southern Alberta that clearly requires investment. It was dated, and with a long lineup of people to get into it. And I think we can do a better job as Albertans. And I know the pressures that we're under. I know that we've had to adopt a 100-kilometer rule in terms of where seniors are going to be housed. The ultimate test of a society is just how it takes care of people who are vulnerable, and seniors deserve to be taken care of, and we need the infrastructure to do that.
On the government flights issue, would you
Yes.
allow family members of MLAs to fly on government planes?
No,
And why is that?
because from my perspective, planes are required as a mode of transport for government business, and it is restricted to government business. I made that very clear this week in Calgary. I also added to that, from my perspective, we need to hear from the Auditor General, and there may be a more efficient way to deliver the air service that's required. If necessary, we'll put out an RFP, seek out competitive options to find out how we can provide the service. The third point I made is that the government of Alberta should not be providing a flight service between Edmonton and Calgary that duplicates commercial flights that are available on the hour for all Albertans, and they should be available for the Premier and for ministers of the government. And the government of Alberta is not WestJet, it is not Air Canada, and it should be out of that business.
Guys, we have time for a couple more questions.
It's 10 minutes, right?
We have time for a couple more questions.
Go ahead.
Je vais répondre en français. Sur
Ok.
quoi allez-vous miser pour votre campagne? Est-ce qu'il y a un point important sur l'éducation postsecondaire? Est-ce que ça va être quelque chose que vous allez continuer à parler durant votre campagne?
Ah oui, c'est un enjeu très important, et pour moi, c'est un enjeu important aussi. Oui.
There's been a lot of
Sorry,
talk.
September 1st. You said no to a carbon tax. Do you want, though, to change the carbon levy in Alberta?
Well, the point that I've made on this is really as follows. We need to be an environmental leader, but we don't need to damage our competitiveness. And we need to be quite careful. In the context of exercising environmental leadership, I think we need to work with the national government. We need to work with the United States because carbon emissions in particular don't respect atmospheric boundaries. And so this is a North American problem. And I don't think that we should be damaging our competitiveness by increasing carbon levies in circumstances where the people we compete with, specifically the United States, won't do the same. And so, I know there's a balance here. I know that we need to exercise leadership, and we will. But from my perspective, we also have to be careful that we don't damage our competitiveness. And, I'll tell you, something that influenced me on this was Stephen Chu was in Alberta. He spoke in November. He's the former Energy Secretary of the United States. And he acknowledged in front of 1,000 people in a room that I was at, he was there as my guest, that in the entire time he was the Energy Secretary of the United States, he didn't know that Alberta had attached a price on carbon. And so I make the point that, if the Americans are not even aware that we're doing it, why would we double down on it at this point?
Would you remove it then?
No, I think it's, I support the architecture of it. I was involved as a federal minister in terms of the development of the framework. I'm very supportive of the framework. I just think that as we move forward, we need to move forward in concert with the people whom we're competing with, because our major competitor now, is essentially the United States, whether you're speaking about natural gas or increasingly oil. And so, and this is a very similar to the position that the national government is taking.
Guys, we've got time for one more question.
There's been a lot of talk about expenses. You've talked about reducing cabinet, and Kyra today talked about his staff and their salaries. Is that something that you've considered?
Well, I spoke very clearly. I've spoken very clearly about this. I'll continue to speak clearly about it over the campaign. There is a need to increase transparency, to repair the bonds that have been broken between the elected representatives of this province and Albertans, and that deals with what I call the end of entitlements. And I've been very clear about this. That will mean the end of sweetheart contracts for political staff. It'll mean the change of lobby rules so that people cannot lobby the government one day and work for it the next, and vice versa. It will mean the end of sole source contracts, and for everyone. There will be no sole source contracts. It means that people need to be, in terms of appointments, as we appoint people in this province to important boards and agencies and so on, these need to be made on the basis of qualifications, not political affiliation. And of course, we've spoken as well about air travel. So in all these respects, I think we have work to do in any government that I'm fortunate enough to lead. The people who are elected and work with me will be public servants. It's called public service for a reason. It's not called private gain. And anyone that works with me will be a servant of the people of Alberta.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.